We're hanging out with the Ostrog Advanced. This is a new case from Enermax with a lot of new features. We're going to go through it. They have it in black, and this is the version that they're mainly going to be selling, but there's also several different colors, orange and blue and green and red and white, that they're going to be offering to OEMs out there, so lots of different colors to choose from. So first off, let's just talk about what this case is. It's a full-sized case for regular ATX, but you can fit pretty much ATX, micro ATX, ITX, whatever. Now the front, we've seen a lot of this before, very easy to remove. For the different bays here, and we do have 4 bays. This is just here for demo purposes, 4 2.5-inch drives. We'll show you those in just a minute, but they've added that in for fun. Now down here we have our fans and our easy dust filter. You just pull that off and whoa, slap the fans, clean that off very easily. Now you guys see there's some LEDs, very easy to change with the button on top. Press it a few times, it cycles through the different colors and also the different modes. It can breathe, it can move around, it can do all kinds of different things, but it'll basically glow, and you can also turn it off. There's all the different colors, so it's breathing now. The red is breathing. So that's kind of interesting. Now on the top, we can pull this off, and there's another dust filter in the top. So not too bad. And up here we can fit a 240 or a 280 radiator. Now there's a couple different models out there. This model here has USB 3, USB 2, and USB 3.1 Type C. Plus there's your fan controller, and then the power button, reset button, and your audio ports on the top. Now they make another version that has fast charge for USB instead of the USB 3.1, and that's available to the OEMs, and you can grab one of those if you like. All right, let's rip open the side. Pretty easy, just pull the little handle in the back, and there we go. Now under the hood you can see we have, they've done a few things. There's a spot right here where a hard drive tray could be. They've removed it to make room for large graphics cards. It could fit up over 400 millimeter graphics cards, so huge graphics cards in here. If you remove this, we have more hard drive trays down here, and these will hold 2.5 and 3.5-inch drives, and you can just pop them in there. Everything's toolless with the 3.5-inch drives. You do some screws on the bottom. Room for mounting fans here, fans in the back, of course, and then fans in the front. And you know what? If you wanted to get creative and remove all the hard drives from here, remove all this stuff, you could. You'd have to unscrew it from the bottom, but you could get creative and go crazy and add all kinds of different things to this. Maybe mod it. You have a lot of open area here to do stuff. This is the back here. You can see we have a 120 mounted right there. Then you've got your I/O panel, of course, and your expansion base. Got a couple grommeted holes here for water cooling, so that's nice to see. And then a honeycomb, ventilation area there. So you can mess around with this. One other thing I want to note, hey, check that out. There is another dust filter underneath the power supply, so you can pull that out and clean it. That's going to probably collect quite a bit of dust. I'll get that back in there after we're done with the video. So that's the Ostrog Advanced from Enermax. All right, you know what? This is silly, but this is one of my favorite things that Enermax does. I love all these things like this because there's no tray needed. Now, you may recognize some of this stuff. This one in particular, it has one 2.5-inch. Put that back in. Get in there. I'm breaking things. And it's got, get in there. There we go. One 3.5-inch. And USB 3 with an on and off switch.
Now, there's a lot of cases.
Where's this one?
This one we actually used in Eric S. Raymond's case, so you might have seen that from the ESR build video. But the other thing that I want to mention about this is there's a lot of motherboards that have dual front panel USB 3 now, but not a lot of cases have 4 USB 3 ports on them. This is a convenient, easy way you can use one of your 5.25-inch bays, get your two extra USB 3 ports, and a 3.5-inch and a 2.5-inch hot swap bay. And that's what we did for ESR.
Yeah, the hot swaps are freaking convenient in my opinion. And then of course you've got all the memory card readers. Lots of different companies make those. They've decided to add in the fast charge port. I'm waiting to see what they come out with that has USB 3.1, maybe Type A and C. So just keep an eye on them. They do not only do cooling in cases. They also do enclosures and hot swap and all that sort of thing.
In addition to that, we've also got some other, enclosures, and then we've also got these.
Enermax makes hard drives, Wendell? What the hell?
Well, it turns out these aren't actually hard drives. These are enclosures. So this one's kind of cool. You do the thing, and it pops open, and you've got your spot for your 2.5-inch drive. Yeah, that's great, whatever. But what's this one? What could it possibly do that's different? I mean, it's the same kind of thing, right? Well, let's open it up and look. Oh, it's got 2 bays. But wait, there's only one connector. How does that work? Well, there's a chip in here, and you can configure if you want it to be JBOD, RAID 1, RAID 0, or NOR. And I'm not really sure what NOR does, but we need to get one of these and actually review it. This could be an enclosure that you could put in 2 identical drives and have the enclosure do the RAID 1 for you.
I think NOR is an anti-NSA thing. It's not on record. So anything you put in NOR will not be on record and will not be seen by the NSA. This is the Digi Fanless 550 watt fanless, no fan inside here, completely without a fan, absolutely no fan inside this fanless 550 watt fanless Enermax power supply. Right there it is, yes. Did I mention that there's not a fan in here? So they've guaranteed the operation up to 40 C ambient, and there's no fan in here. That's really the big thing. That's the main spec, is that there's no fan. It's going to run completely silent. They're obviously using some high quality components. I have not tested this out, and they're not letting me take it apart just right here, you know, because it's the one on the show floor. I really want to take it apart and have a look-see and see what's going on under the hood, but I'm sure we'll get one of these and fully test it. Now, one of the other things that's interesting is there's ZD PMS port right here, and what that is you plug it in here and you plug it into your USB. You've seen this with some other brands out there. And then in your OS, you can monitor everything that's going on. You know, you'll know the temperature, you'll know the load, you'll know, pretty much everything about it. Above and beyond that, it's fully modular. So if you're using a system that has under 550 watts and you want silence, could be a very interesting way to go. Now, you see we have a few different 12-volt rails here, 30 amps on each of those. So, take that into consideration when you're planning your system build as far as your graphics cards and that sort of thing goes. I wouldn't expect to see much more than that on a 550 watt power supply anyway. So there you have it, the Enermax Digi Fanless. No fan inside here, absolutely. There's not a fan anywhere around, anywhere near this unit. No fan.
Okay, so this is the Twister Storm. It is a 3,500 RPM max speed fan, and it's got a really magical patented twister bearing for long lifespan, blah blah blah. I mean, it's designed to run at really high speeds for a really long time, an industrial level with a low noise. And compared to most case fans, it's probably a little bit louder, but it's still pretty darn quiet compared to some of the other industrial fans that I've had my hands on. Ready for this? Okay, so I'm putting 2 golf balls to show the power of this fan. This is a 3,500 RPM fan, and there they go. Not very fast, but it goes. And put the hand up here, it makes it go a little faster. This is just changing the way the air flies into the fan. Alright, so check this out. This 2,500 RPM fan. We're just going to put 1 in here. And that's it. Now, if I put my hand here and get that little bit of extra forced air, we can move some of the little guys around, but it's not even enough to move that 3,500, and it's not very loud. It's not. I would say it's not any louder than this one, but it's a heck of a lot more powerful.
Blingy fans are not really my thing, but I thought this was cool. I've never seen anything that does the flashiness like this. It's kind of like a vortex thing. This kind of stuff, okay, that's fine. But it also does like the trace lights things. So you got some options in terms of like what you want it to do, and then you can do the RGB thing as well. Then you get the sort of the chase lights thing going on. It's kind of neat. This is the T6 Slim. It's got a 120 millimeter cooling fan. Now the fan's actually only 15 millimeters thick, so it's actually really thin, and the overall height of the cooler is 5.5 centimeters or 55 millimeters. Now, it's a tight fit. This is one of the MSI boards that they've got in here. This is one of the ones we've complained about because the CPU socket is just so darn close to the PCI Express slot, and we've got the extra tall RAM in here. The cool thing about this cooler is that it's not symmetrical. You can mount it a couple of different ways, and it will shift around where the fan is in relation to the CPU. So the cooling system is not centered over the CPU socket to give you some flexibility on the ITX platform. And so we don't have a low profile graphics card, so we've got this sort of pad that we're going to use to show you. But if we sort of insert the pad and pretend it's a graphics card, you can see that we just barely have a little clearance there. Now, you can sort of mess with how the fan mounts and some other stuff. You might have a problem if you've got this kind of a motherboard where the CPU socket is so close to the GPU, if your GPU has a bracket. But in this configuration, you do have enough clearance for a graphics card with this cooler. And this is a 120 millimeter cooler for an ITX system that even tolerates tall RAM. Now, if you've got regular height RAM, you've got a sort of a slotted out area underneath it that'll let regular height RAM actually fit underneath the cooler. Now, that's a little problematic if you want to, swap your RAM without having to take the cooler out, but you can do it if you need to. Now, you guys may remember an earlier version of this cooler. This is the new T40 Fit. The earlier version showed up in our sort of whiteout build that we did with the Z87 and the Asus Griffin motherboard, but this is a slimmer version that supports a push-pull configuration, even in like an X99 type platform where you've got RAM slots on both sides, so you've got plenty of clearance. Now, this thing is as efficient as the old cooler, even though it's a physically smaller. It's a sort of a physically smaller heatsink, but it does support the push-pull configuration and has enough clearance for your RAM on both sides. The total height here is 155 millimeter, so it's a pretty tall cooler, but you've got plenty of room between your RAM and the cooler. There's also a pretty good amount of clearance from the heatsink between the first GPU slot and the cooler, although that's going to vary somewhat from motherboard to motherboard. Just like previously, this updated model is available in different configurations. We looked at the pure whiteout build, but you've also got sort of the more traditional, copper and aluminum type options, and then you've also got the pure black option as well.